DelAware. It is Thursday. It's February 22nd. I'm Peter MacArthur. I know you're wondering where 2024 is going. We all are. Let's take a look at the job market. Your place potentially in it. And we check in like we do, not infrequently, with Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark. Hey, Chris, good morning, first of all. How are you?
Pete, thanks for having me on. It's great to spend time with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you on. It has been like about a month since you were here last. Why don't we start by doing this? Offer up some insights, if you can, Chris, on how DelAware is doing relative to unemployment and to jobs.
I'd be happy to. So the DelAware unemployment rate has really not changed much. It's right around 4.2%. That is higher than the overall U.S. at 3.7%. But there's some good news. Newcastle County and Kent County did improve. And it's interesting. I'm not sure if it's seasonal, but Sussex went up just a touch. And, jobs in DelAware are up around 10,000 for last year. And it's mostly in education, healthcare, and leisure and hospitality and government. What's interesting is that percentage of growth is about 2% of our workforce, and that is in line with the rest of the country. Now, anecdotally, what I see is there is a continued war for the right talent, with right talent being the addition to that phrase. Many employers can't find the key talent they need that have really specific skills and experiences. And if you're in skilled trades, a bookkeeper and healthcare, man, you can write your own ticket.
Interesting. Yeah. We saw the January jobs report, Chris, way higher than the predictions were. Dive into the tea leaves a little bit. Talk about maybe what this means for hiring or for getting a job in 2024.
All right. So here's the really long headline, and then I'll share some fun facts. The number of jobs and hires are up unexpectedly, like you said. Folks are quitting less than they have in past years. Boomers are leaving the market. They're all turning 65. Many are this year. And this is all interconnected to the economy, the higher interest rates, and business confidence. So in a nutshell, last year, our country, on average, created 250,000 jobs per month. Well, January was supposed to, whoever projected said, well, it's going to start to slow down. Interest rates are going to have an impact. Where are we going to get workers? And the projection was 60,000 jobs. Well, we had 353,000 jobs. What's interesting is in November, December, the job totals were revised up. That happens a lot. This is 3 straight Januaries where the miss was substantial, Pete. We probably should go back and review our tape because I think I've said this 2 years in a row to you. But there's this reaccelerating job growth. And there's big areas of job growth, ironically, in government, healthcare, and hospitality. That's really where it's been. But now wages, which had been flat, last month they bumped up for the most in the last 12 months. So if you look at the whole story, instant new trend with jobs going up over 3 or 4 months. Wages are starting to increase. Is this a one-off, or is this going to overheat the economy and cause inflation? Just interesting sound bites. I don't think we know yet, but the economy's staying hot, and and as I've said before, job inflation does or job wage growth does impact the economy. So it's really interesting stuff, and there's a lot of. It's complex in that this isn't how everybody views it, and it isn't how some businesses are experiencing it.
Yeah,
it's just pockets that seem to really relate to it well.
Before we move on, let me get your thoughts on this, Chris, because as we mentioned, that jobs report was way higher. I mean, I think it was maybe twice as much as had been predicted, right? Just because you're close to this issue, what do you make of the misread on that? If we have these analysts making these predictions and they're so far off base with them, does that matter, or is it more, the number itself that comes out that really just sets us up for what we're dealing with down the road? That's the more important piece of that formula.
Well, I think I always, a one-time set of data is just data.
Yeah.
But a couple of times is a trend. So the first thing is, I kind of can't wait to see how January looks. I think that'll be out any day. And then we could say, look what's happened now over another month, right? But I will tell you, So first of all, it's a big miss, but this is a very common January miss.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that there's lots of different ways that economists look at this data. They, believe it or not, they do an old-fashioned where they call the house, and it's called the household survey. That household survey is much more negative in its reflection of these numbers. So believe it or not, there's conflict. So I think I would take a wait-and-see approach. However, anecdotally in the local market with what I see, I do see manufacturing was perhaps in a slight recession last year. I see that changing right before our eyes. Government continues to lead the way here and elsewhere with hiring. Healthcare and hospitality are trying to catch up. So I think we take a wait-and-see approach. However, the economy never really took this dip. It never really slowed down. And, we keep trying to predict it, right? But it really hasn't. And now if it's heating up again, then we're right back to needing talent. The biggest question is where are you going to get the talent? 175,000 people left the workforce in December. They're not all boomers.
Yeah.
Are they retired? Will they return? So it's a cool story, and I do like, maybe that makes me a little geeky, but I like watching it.
I call this the governor's game changer. I think this is a pretty big deal, the changes they've made now to degree requirements here in Delaware for state jobs. So what can that mean for the future of degree requirements, Chris, not just in government positions?
Well, there's a real movement in looking at jobs in public and private sector to examine the degree requirement and see if it's actually needed to do the job. It is something that I have been railing against for a long, long time. So the state of Delaware joined some other states. They looked at 350 roles across several departments, and they dropped it. And the change is really critical because jobs go unfilled or they lack enough candidates to fill the openings in a timely fashion. But there's what's called a STAR, Pete, which is a workforce who has the skills and experience to do the work that they got from the military or a community college or on the job.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, this is 70 million people in the country. It's half the working population that fit this. So it is red hot. I think everybody sees the common sense in this, and it is getting momentum. I will tell you, it is. There's a lot of competing articles out there. Some are saying that although firms are doing this, they're still not filling jobs as fast as they need to,
right,
or the way they thought they would. State of Delaware has had immediate impact with this. That they've filled more roles. And I'm sure results will follow.
Yeah, really, really interesting to watch that as well. You've talked about in your book the idea of this culture of one, right? Ultimately working on one's self. What lesson, Chris, would you kind of share for the audience to think about along those lines?
Well, it's been a building story, but to have what you want, you have to really know who you are and kind of work on you. And And to do that, you need to commit time to you and what you want. That's so basic. I hope folks aren't rolling their eyes at that. But so many people won't invest a half hour to an hour that I'm willing to take the 1 minute I have with you and talk about it, because the world comes at me, whether they're business leaders or folks looking for work, and they don't have what they want. And it starts with trying to work on your goals. Now, here's the cool thing. Pick a goal and then measure your daily effort towards the goal. Imagine, Pete, pick something. It doesn't even have to be business related, but imagine scoring your effort on a 1 to 10 scale every day. We all can control our effort towards what we want. Life gets in the way, but imagine doing this, reviewing your average, and then talking about it. So I do that with groups of leaders to help people get what they want. But it's if we all were willing to measure our effort towards what we want, it's just something to play with, and I think it's very powerful.
And what's great about doing it on that regular basis, Chris, is it's almost inevitable that progress will follow. If you're taking stock on that regular account, daily or what have you, you're bound to keep things moving in the right direction toward what it is you ultimately do want to succeed.
We can only control our effort. What I do find is some people are so frustrated that they can't make progress, and they stop it.
Yep.
But most people, 80%, you're 100% right, If I'm willing to stare at this piece of paper and say I gave myself a 5 on my effort towards it, I'm not going to do that long, especially if I do it at the dinner table or with a peer group at work or, in a more formal group. It is a really strong way. And focusing on effort, hey, we all have big dreams. Strategy's easy. Goals are easy. Working on them's hard.
Chris Burkhard joining us, Placer Staffing in Newark. And for you listening, if you want to find out more about what Chris and his folks do, myplacers.com is an excellent place to check out. Can't wait to speak to you again. Great stuff today. Very, very interesting things on the horizon here, Chris. And have a great weekend.
Look forward to talking to you next month.
All right. Sounds good.